What's up guys, it's the Hockey Radar tracking drafts and prospects, and in today's video we have another addition to the 2026 draft series with the third defenseman in the last 4 episodes, QMJHL Defenseman of the Year, Xavier Villeneuve. This video comes right off the heels of another top CHL defenseman, Daxon Rudolph. If you haven't seen his video, make sure to go check it out on my page, along with the rest of the series and tons of other prospect content. Originally from Laval, Quebec, Villeneuve was taken 7th overall by the Armada of the QMJHL, a draft that featured Mammoth top prospect Caleb Desnoyers at 1st overall. Villeneuve is a 5'11", 160-pound left shot defenseman who is already 18 years old, making him on the older side of this draft, certainly one of the oldest players in this series. His size is what sticks out in his game and is what could potentially make him fall in this draft, as it is hard to justify using a top pick to take a kid who is just above 160 pounds. Nevertheless, he is a very shifty, mobile offensive defenseman whose ranking is quite varied, with some having him between 9 and 11, others in the teens, and some in the 20s, but in terms of left defense, he may be the best option on the table, so I could definitely see him going in the early teens at next year's draft. Overall, it's hard to project since teams historically do not value the Q as highly as some other leagues, but every now and then you see a top player come out of the Q, and I think this year it could be Villeneuve. After being drafted, he would debut right away and put up a very impressive 8 goals, 35 assists for 43 points in 54 games, with 5 points in 7 playoff games. This was good enough to win CHL All-Rookie Team honors and QMJHL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Also in 23-24, he would represent Canada at the U17s, putting up 3 assists in 7 games. This past season in 24-25, he would explode for 12 goals, 50 assists for 62 points in 61 games, and 4 assists in 5 playoff games. This would score him the QMJHL All-Star Team honors and the QMJHL Defenseman of the Year trophy. He would once again suit up for Canada, this time at the U18s, putting up an impressive 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points in 7 games, taking home gold and leading all Canadian defensemen in points, and being second in the tournament among all defensemen. Already this season, at the time of this recording, he's put up 3 assists in 4 games, and I project him to continue his production growth and go for 15 goals, 56 assists for 71 points, and win back-to-back Defenseman of the Year trophies. Although the option was available to him, he did not make the switch to the NCAA, which I agree with. With his current lack of size and strength, I think he would have looked really out of his depths against older and stronger college competition. Watching Villeneuve play, his shiftiness is really apparent. His edge work and stick handling at the blue line is almost comparable to a Quinn Hughes or Lane Hudson. Granted, it's against weaker competition, and his ceiling is definitely not as high as those two players, but the similarities are definitely there. He has great vision looking up ice and through the neutral zone, and makes great passes in the O-zone, finding teammates backdoor from the point. He is a great skater. Like I mentioned, it looks a bit like Quinn Hughes or even Jesper Bratt with the way he skates so smoothly, great at weaving his way through players and finding space for himself on the ice. With his offensive instinct, he could definitely run a power play at the NHL level, as he makes great heads-up plays and he can beat the forward at the blue line and attack the goal. He doesn't quite have a strong shot yet, but still takes smart shots on net, either looking for a tip or looking backdoor. He still uses his shot deceptively, winding up for a big slap shot and then passing it to someone near the net. Due to his lack of a hard shot from the point, he has resorted to sneaking in deep in the zone, where many of his goals come from in the slot. This can cause him to get caught a little too deep in the zone, and I said the same thing in the Keaton Verhoff video. They can get away with things like that in the CHL, but we'll have to tone that down at higher levels to prevent getting caught and having a forward cover on D. On defense, he does have some potential. He has an active stick and positioning is fine, and he has the skating ability to recover defensively if needed. However, you can tell he is always thinking about offense and almost gets caught cheating a bit to join the rush and leave the zone early. Unfortunately, I can't envision him winning many puck battles at the NHL level, so that is where the concerns lie with NHL teams, whether you think he is a liability in the D zone or not. If you compare him with a strong, big defensive partner, this would really allow him to play freely offensively, kind of like Taves and Makar, but ultimately, you would want Villeneuve to figure out his defensive game too. Overall, he is a great offensive force, skating and stick handling similar to some of the best offensive defensemen in the league, great hockey IQ, and has the potential to put up solid numbers at the NHL level. However, his size will hurt him in the draft, especially if teams do not believe he can win many puck battles, as it is tough to justify using a top pick to take someone who will hurt you in the defensive zone. Some teams who I could see be in the market for Villeneuve at next year's draft: the Vancouver Canucks. By the end of the season, if they miss out on the playoffs, I think the Quinn Hughes picture will be more and more clear, and in that case, I think they need to prepare for the worst, and if they need to replace that production from the blue line and they're picking in the early teens, Villeneuve seems like the perfect choice. We saw similar things with Quinn Hughes in his rookie year, great offensively but lacking in size and lacking in the D zone, and if the Canucks can develop Villeneuve in a similar way, then Vancouver may be the perfect fit for him. And again, not saying the ceiling is anywhere near as high, but they could develop him into a solid 55+ point guy on that blue line with decent defensive game. Even if Quinn stays, they could still slot him in that top 4 behind Hughes and Roenick and alongside Villander, and potentially create one of the best top 4s in this league. Next team, I promised you all if I talk about a defenseman, I will mention the Seattle Kraken. Not much else needs to be said, they have always lacked a high-end defensive prospect, and Villeneuve could be a great addition to their young core, and a better fit for the timeline than Montour or Dunn. I would imagine the Kraken are going to be picking a little higher than where Villeneuve will fall, and probably go for a Ryan Lynn or Daxon Rudolph, but you never know. Unlike Vancouver, with Hughes potentially in the way of Villeneuve becoming a potential top pairing guy, there was no one that could really stand in his way in Seattle, and that could be a great opportunity to realize his full potential, becoming a top pairing guy and running the first power play unit, and putting up huge numbers with offensive talents like Beniers, Wright, O'Brien, and Berkeley Catton. Lastly, I'll go with the Flyers. Looking at their current lineup, Nick Seeler is in that second pair left D spot behind Cam York, and there is no one really on the way for Philly in terms of defense. It could be a great opportunity for Villeneuve to work his way into that top 4, and likely even pass Cam York for that top pairing spot, as York has struggled to show consistency in his ability to be a top defenseman and run a power play. The Flyers have picked some high-end forwards in their last few drafts, addressing some positional needs, which was the correct decision at the time as they still had Drysdale and York as young defensemen. However, every year that passes where those two continue to struggle, their need for a high-end defenseman will grow, and maybe Villeneuve can take on that mantle in Philly and be a part of the next wave with Michkov, Martone, and company. While I do think Philly has the potential to bottom out this season, with Tocchet at the helm, they may reach higher than expected and end up with a pick in the early teens. Villeneuve is a very intriguing talent. Offensive production alone, he is up there with some of the other top defensemen in this class, but he needs to put on some size quick. Even if he won't grow any taller, he needs to put on some muscle that will help him in the defensive zone and in the corners. If he can have another season similar to last year, and if he can show signs of upping his defensive game, he could have a chance to be an early teens pick, maybe even challenge for the top 10, as again, he is the best lefty prospect in the draft by a mile, so if a team is picking positionally, maybe he'll go earlier than expected. That's all for Villeneuve. Let me know what you guys think in the comments and where you think he'll end up at next year's draft. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for tons more prospect content to come.